ya yinanam ya mama ya yinanam ya mama ya yinanam ya mama ya mama yinanana yo ya yinanam ya yo yinanam ya mama yo yinanam ya mama ya mama yinanam yo yinanam ya mama yo yinanam ya mama yo yinanam ya mama ya mama yinanam yo yinanam mama yo yinanam ya mama yo yinanam ya mama ya mama ya yinanana yo Chaim. Before Shavuos, the Rebbe will give the bracha, Bolas HaTorah, B'Simcha B'Pnimius. Amen. Chaim. The Farbrengen today is obviously Shabbos and Vorchim. So that's the corner of the Rebbe that we have to Farbrengen Shabbos and Vorchim. Can't Farbrengen different days, so with Motzei Shabbos. Then especially, this is not a regular Shabbos and Vorchim. Shabbos and Vorchim before Shavuos. Shabbos and Vorchim Sivan. But the Ikkenukudi is that the Rebbe said that the Shabbos before Shavuos, we should make special Farbrengen. It should be Shabbos Achdus. And the reason the Rabbi gave is because since as a Hachonah to Matan Torah by the Eden was Vayichan Shom Yisrael Neged Ahor Ki Ish Echad B'Leib Echad, all the Eden were Ba'achdus Mamish. So and this is the reason why there was Eichel to Matan Torah. So also every year before Matan Torah we have to review this again. We have to feel this again. Just like Matan Torah happens again, so all the things happen again. So you have to have the union of this experience, this Vayichan Shom Yisrael, the union of Avos Yisrael, the union of Achdus Yisrael. And then also, specifically, the way it's now is that it's Rosh Chodesh Sivan already. Tonight is Rosh Chodesh Sivan. And when did this happen? Is Vayichan Shom Yisrael happened on Rosh Chodesh Sivan. So this makes the Farbrengen even more important, more what the Rebbe wants. That the Achdus is on the day that it happened then. The union of Rosh Chodesh, when it's Vayichan Shom Yisrael Neged Ahor. And the Rebbe, when he said that he wants it to be a Shabbos Achdus, I think he used the Lashon, it's a Bakosha Nafshis. The Rebbe from Bakosha Nafshis is the Lashon that the Rabbi used when something that they wanted to happen, which was negated to their Etzem HaNefesh, in other words, was something with mamish essential to their essential. That's why he said Bakosha Nafshis. It comes from my nefesh. It comes from the Etzem HaNefesh of the Rebbe. So the Rebbe asks for it, and Bakosha Nafshis, obviously, it's something that's very, very important. By the Rebbe, the union of Achdus was something that was very, very important. And when things were no Achdus and the Rebbe saw some kinds of pirud, the Rebbe was mamish. It affected the Rebbe mamish. And that's why the Rebbe would have tinus sometimes when people were not ba'achdus. The Rebbe wrote to, I think to Rabbi Yisrael Leib once, and he gave the Askonim in Eretz Yisrael, that if the Askonim would be ba'achdus the way it's supposed to, I think he wrote the Lashon, well, Mashiach lang gekommen. Mashiach would have been here a long, long time ago if there would be Achdus. And it makes sense why. I mean, whatever we don't need explanation, but it's poshet. But since the whole union of the Churban and the Golas is because of Sinas Chinam, so obviously if you have Achdus, it would become Mashiach. But he said it like Gabi Lubavitch. In other words, he was talking only to the Askonim of Chabad. And he said if all the Askonim would be there really be Achdus, well, Shalai Mashiach gekommen. There's so many other people in the world. Vice is that the Achdus that's amongst us is something that's so important that by the Rebbe, if this would be, If Achdus amongst Askone Anash, so you have to have Achdus with every Yid, obviously, and that's the whole idea of Abbas Yisrael. I mean, we'll go into that, we'll explain that, because this is a time of talking about Abbas Yisrael and Achdus. But we see from the Rebbe that this is something that's negated the way it's by us. And it makes sense also, because Sof Kosov, the Rebbe, the Nossi Ador, and we're the Chassidim of the Rebbe, so this is what counts. What counts very much is what goes on by us. So the Rebbe said, if the Askonim of, he talked about it, Yisrael, would be completely Ba'achdus, Mashiach Latchalan Gekumen. Actually, I saw a settle from the Rebbe printed. I saw it today or yesterday, I don't remember myself, where someone wrote to the Rebbe, the kesher to the Rebbe speaking by Farbrengen about Achdus. So someone wrote to the Rebbe, that's what it says there. Someone wrote to the Rebbe that there is a person that he was angry with him for, I don't know if he writes 25 years or 20 years, that he was upset with him and they were in a fight. But because the Rebbe spoke about Achdus, he says, I went to him and I spoke to him and I gave him a kiss. That's what the guy wrote to the Rebbe. So the Rebbe answered, I don't remember the exact words, but he answered that this caused him great, great nachas ruach. I remember the Lashon, nachas ruach, Godel b'yeser or something, but the Lashon. But the Rebbe, just to see that one Yid and another that were tukrikt, and they went and they made shalom, and he said, that's what the way they write, that he wrote to the Rebbe that I gave him a neshika, I gave him a kiss. The Rebbe answered with such a spilus that he's so excited, so to speak, that you did this. Because by the Rebbe, this was something that was, the Rebbe once spoke even, when there's a time when there's in the Shechunah, there are all kinds of machlokes. So the Rebbe, and there was an accident of somebody, and the Rebbe connected it, and he said that the union of not having Achdus rishton in the foshes. In the foshes, foshes means in lives. So by the Rebbe, it was very, Rebbe, at one point when there was problems and machlokes about certain things, the way Rabbi Groner, I think, gave over then, that the Rebbe said to him, he was talking, from Hartzen, the Rebbe was saying that why is it that in my time, in other words, you have all the Rabbeim, in my time should be such big machlekes. In other words, it's something that's very, in the way from the Baal Shem Tov on, the union of Ahavas Yisrael was such an important thing, and the Rebbe felt please get at Mamash, he couldn't take it. So Shabbos, that's set for Shabbos Achdus, and especially now that there is a whole, let's call it a movement amongst Lubavitch, among Shluchim, to strengthen the Achdus, that even people who were not so good zwischen sich should become. So now is a special time in the Geidas Inyan of strengthening the Achdus, strengthening the Ahavas Yisrael that we have. Now, one of the things of Achdus that actually, this is the Vatal Media Apnimim made, I think for the Bochum mainly, but it's for everybody, that everyone should learn the Shabbos. They sent out a Maimer, and everyone should learn the same Maimer. The Rebbe always says, Achdus through Torah is the greatest Achdus. That's why if you have all the same ACS, same Secretary ACS, it's Achdus through Torah. So if you learn the same thing, one of the things the Rebbe said about learning Rambam, that everyone learns the same halach in Rambam. It's a union of Achdus. And that will bring Mashiach. So they sent out a Maimer, and they sent out a Sicha that, one of the Sichas, it's a famous Sicha that has to do with Rosh Chodesh Sivan, and there it talks about Achdus. And everyone should learn it. So I just thought that I think maybe I should give over an Nakuda from that Sicha, because it talks about Achdus, but it brings out what the union of Achdus is and connected to Rosh Chodesh Sivan, the way the Gemara explains it. And now it's Rosh Chodesh Sivan, so this is a Dover B'itei. Just want to mention, Mechlal, that there was one Tovshin Lamed Vov, the Rebbe said to give out a special kuntras called Kuntras Ahavas Yisrael. I don't know if they ever reprinted it or something. This is the Kuntras Ahavas Yisrael. The Rebbe gave out, and the Rebbe wanted they should have Werter of the Baal Shem Tov, first of Psukim, and then from Kabbalah, from the Alter Rebbe, and the Baal Shem Tov, and the Alter Rebbe, and the other Rabbeim, things about Ahavas Yisrael, and then the whole Kuntras just on Ahavas Yisrael. The Rebbe said to learn this. I think when the Rebbe made the whole fuss then about having mashpiyim, everyone should have a seiloch harab, and having mashpiyim, those that were mashpiyim, the Rebbe gave them a kuntras Ahavas Yisrael, because that's the whole nekuda of Chassidus. And the Rebbe explains, and if you look into the kuntras and you see all the different things that the Rebbe brings, that's the whole yisod. In the back here they have from Sefer HaErkim, Sefer the Erech Ahavas Yisrael. The whole Erech, and it brings from Chassidus all over with Arav Yisrael is, and they have this also in the Erech. I think in the first krach of Sefer Erkim, but it's something by the Rebbe. There was this, and Chassidus Bechlal, we know that Arav Yisrael. We say Chassidus. It's famous in Torah. It's a klal gadol b'Torah. That's Omer Rabbi Akiva is a klal gadol b'Torah. Or that klal gadol b'Torah means it's a big klal in Torah. So the Rebbe is medayik. It's a big klal in Torah. It's a klal, not the whole Torah. It's a klal in Torah. It's not a stam klal. It's a big klal. What Hillel said was even more. Hillel said, when the ger came to Hillel and he said, "I'm ready to be megayer if you teach me the whole Torah as I'm standing on one foot." So he told him, "Yeah, but aloch sani lechavrach lisavit zeu kol haTorah kula." Whatever you don't want, you hate to be done to you, don't do to anybody, to your friend. That's the whole Torah. The rest is commentary. Go learn it. So Hillel even said more, not only that this is a clown Torah, this is the whole Torah. So it's the whole Torah. And you see this especially, the stress of Ahavas Yisrael, especially. So it's very important. So the Rebbe designated a Shabbos, that this Shabbos should be the stress. We always have to do it. We always have to have Yisrael. Before davening, you start, you say, Yareini Mekabel, so it has to be every day and every second, but everything has a set time of the year when you stress it. Shavuos, you stress Matan Torah, even though every day the Torah was given. Pesach, you stress Yitzias Mitzrayim, even though every day you have to have Zchiras Yitzias Mitzrayim. So the Rebbe designated the Shabbos Achdus, Shabbos before Matan Torah, which fits. Even though the Rebbe said it that year, but it seems like this is something that the Rebbe wanted. So that's what I was thinking to repeat that Sicha that I said, that Chavches from Rosh Chodesh Nisan Sivan, that was sent out, that everybody should learn it. I think it was more sent out to the yeshivas, to the Talmidei yeshivas, but it's something for everybody. And this is what the Nekuda, what the Rebbe says there. I'll say Bekitzer because it's a long Sicha, but a very Gishmaki Sicha. The Rebbe quotes that Gemara, where the Gemara says that the Yidden came to Har Sinai on Rosh Chodesh Sivan. That's when they started preparing for Matan Torah. So the real preparation started from Beis Sivan. When Beis Sivan, the Eibusha said, "V'atem tiyilam melechas ke'enim v'gei Chodesh," and the next day he told them Hagvel Asar to surround the mountain, and the next day he told them to preach it. But Rosh Chodesh, which is the day they came, lo yomer lehu v'lo mideh. He didn't say a word to them about Matan Torah. Why? Because they were tired from the trip they took. They came from a trip. They traveled from Refidim, which was the last station they were at, and they traveled till Har Sinai. And Har Sinai, they came Rosh Chodesh. So because they traveled, so they were tired from the trip. So Moshe Rabbeinu did not want to bother them, tell them anything about Matan Torah. Gave them time to rest. And the second day, Beis Sivan, that year Beis Sivan was actually Tuesday, Rosh Chodesh was Monday, Beis Sivan was Tuesday. That's when he started being meichen them, preparing them to Matan Torah. The Rebbe asked, what's the pshat? That they were tired. They were tired from the trip. They were counting the days to Matan Torah. We all know that. They started Sfira, the whole Sfira is because they were waiting for Matan Torah and they were counting the days. Counting the days means they couldn't wait for it. When you're waiting for something so special and you're tired, you think you won't want that you should start preparing to get it. Someone will tell you that in a few days you're going to get $1 million, $100 million, whatever. And you have to do a few things for it. You say, well, I took a trip today, I'm tired. It makes no sense. So how is it possible that because of that, the Rebbe goes into Kasha, makes it very stronger, especially if it wasn't such a long trip, whatever. And the Rebbe explains that the type of Chul Shadurcha, that they were tired from the trip, doesn't mean the physical trip. I mean, that also is fine. That's not a reason. There is a Ruchnizdika trip. A Ruchnizdika trip is just like you travel a shetach, a space in space. You travel from one place to another. When you go from one madrege to another, it's also called traveling. It's also a trip, but it's a Ruchnizdika trip. Now, every time that the Yidden took a trip after Yitzias Mitzrayim, all these stations, was not only a Gashmizdika trip, they reached a higher level. But the trip they took from Refidim till they came Rosh Chodesh Nisan to Har Sinai, that was such a jump of a trip. The change of levels was so strong that it takes away Meidik energy. Because you not only when you take a physical trip, you were tired and use energy. When you take a Ruchnizdika trip, a Madrege trip, it's even more. When you change your matzav, it's very, very hard. And it takes, this is what it means. They took this trip was more than the other trips. They traveled from one place to another, which means Veruchni is they came higher and higher. We know they went on the Mitzrayim, they're in a very low level, they traveled higher. But this was something that made them very, very exhausted because it was such a change in their ruchnis dikematzev. What's the change that happened here? So the Rebbe says this Vayichan Shem Yisrael. This Vayichan Shem Yisrael that they had Achdus was such a change that you can't imagine. This is so exhausting, this change. Why? The Medrash says that the Yidden till this time, they always were full of arguments. And now, finally, they had Achdus. So the Rebbe says, what does it mean, argument? You think arguments, they were arguing over Narishkeiten? Arguments, it means everyone has their own day. It says, they ain't day same Shabbos. Everyone has their own mind. And everyone has his mind in Ruchnias. So they had arguments in Ruchnias. And there's nothing wrong with it because everybody has, the Eibishter created the world, a person like that. What happened when they came here, that even those things were not there. The Achdus was so strong, the Gilui, and how could you have Achdus? Because you have the Gilui of a Neshama, was so strong that was mamish exhausting to them. And then the Rebbe goes on, so it comes out that it was exhausting, Begashmias, but from a Ruchnisdike exhaustion, it became that physically they were hard. But then the Rebbe says, no, this means the fact that the Eibush didn't tell them anything is part of the Hachanat Matan Torah. Because this inyan, that the Gilui of the Neshama that they became Ba'achdis, brings out the Etzem of a Yid, which is higher in anything that you do. So the way they started the preparation on the day of Achdis was that day, Le'omer U'Le'mideh. He didn't say anything to them. Faked not saying, that's Tachlis HaBitl. When can you have the real Achdis? The real Achdis comes if you have Bitl. What's the reason why there is no Achdis? The reason there is no Achdis is because of Yeshus. Because every person's Metzias is my Metzias. So my Metzias is not your Metzias. And if you hurt me, or I think you hurt me, or I think you said this, and I feel like you didn't hurt me, but your Metzias takes away from my Metzias. What does the Rebbe Rashab explain in Hicholzu? Explains the Maimer Hicholzu is the Maimer that the Rebbe Rashab said more than once. And the Maimer is the Maimer of Achdis. So what does he explain there? That why is there no Achdis? Why is there Sinas Chinam? Because the Yeshus portion, my Metzias, I'm my Metzias, and you're another Metzias. Your Metzias, Shters, is a steer to my Metzias. Because you're also a Metzias. And he says there in the Maimer Cholzu that the inyan of Sinas Chinom is found more by Talmidei Chachamim. Why? Because they have their Metzias. So when they had the real Achdis, is the bittul of the Metzias. They push all mevatel themselves. All mevatel themselves. And that's a great madrege. And that's why when it says they were weak, it doesn't mean that Rebbe says push it physically weak. Their Metzias was weak. Their Metzias, they lost their Metzias. They were so bottled to the Eibishter. And that's why they were able to be Achdis. So this is what the Rebbe explains in that Sikha. And this is a Sikha that has to do with Rosh Chodesh Sivan, to happen on Rosh Chodesh. So I'm just repeating the Sikha. This is what everyone was learning the Shabbos, to bring out what is in the Kud of Achdus, to push away a little bit the Yeshus. I saw another settle from the Rebbe also this day, that the Rebbe writes there. And again, he mentions also in a problem of Achdus, and he says that you have to learn Hicholzu. And I wish that you would be Hicholzu. What does Hicholzu mean? Hicholzu means to, when you mobilize the army, Nichlatz. That's what it talks about. Fighting Moav and Midian. Midian represents arguments. Hicholzu, to fight Midian. So the Rebbe says, I wish you would be a Nichlatz. You would do the Hicholzu. You would mobilize yourself to adding in Torah mitzvahs instead of mobilizing yourself to do something of machlokes. So the union of machlokes is a very, and Abbas Yisrael is the top. You know the famous story of the Frierdiker Rebbe that he tells about Abbas Yisrael. Frierdiker Rebbe says in a Sikha that on the day of his bar mitzvah, it's a famous story, but I'm just repeating. And again, everything I say b'chlal when we Farbrengen, I'm not saying anything new. I'm just repeating the words it says in the Sikhas. That on the day of his bar mitzvah, his father, the Rebbe Rashab, told him, Fregepes, you have anything on your mind? If you want to ask me something, you could ask me now. The Rebbe Rashab told him that when I became bar mitzvah, my father did the same thing to me. He asked me, I should say something. He told me to ask something. The Rebbe Marash. Then he says that the Rebbe Marash, his father, told him that the Tzemach Tzedek did the same thing on the day of his bar mitzvah. And that's a Tzaddik said that on day of his bar mitzvah, the Alter Rebbe did the same thing. He asked him to say something, to ask something. So the Frierdiker Rebbe said, so I asked, what was my shaila? My shaila was, why do we start off the davening with Areini Mekabel Leib mitzvah sesa shalaf terach kamecha? Why do we do it before davening? I mean, why is that the time? What's it got to do with davening? The davening is tefillah to the Eibusher. It's a good thing. It's no question that the person says, I accept upon myself the mitzvah of Avos Yisrael, after Terach kamecha is a gewaldige thing. But what's the connection to davening? So he says his father answered him like this. Bishas, you want something from somebody, you're asking something. How do you expect that he should do it, give you what you want? So the first thing you would do, you would give him an achas ruach. You make him feel good. You give him something. You make it. So then he feels happy. He feels good that he wants to give you what you're asking for. So that's what you do first. When you come to daven, you're asking the Eibusher to give you different things. That's what davening is. Tefillah is about koshas ruach, asking the Eibusher to give you your needs. So before you start davening and you want the Eibusher to listen to you and fulfill your request, you have to make him feel good. You have to make the Eibusher feel good. And he says, just like by a father, the greatest nachas ruach a father could have, that's the Lashon the Frierdiker Rebbe said, the greatest nachas ruach a father could have is when he sees as his children are all ba'achdus. That's the greatest pleasure. Since we want to give the Eibusher pleasure before we ask for anything, you want to give the Eibusher Avinu Shebashamayim, our Father, we want to give him pleasure. So before we start davening, before we ask him for anything, the pleasure we give him is we tell him we're all ba'achdus. That we're telling that so this shows what the union of thinking of caring about other Yidden. And it says this is one of the Yesodis in Chassidus. In Chassidus, this is the Yesod. In Tanya Perek Lamed Beis, the Rebbe speaks about it 100 times. I mentioned it hundreds of times. Perek Lamed Beis, the Leib of Tanya, and the way the Rebbe says in the Pesiches, since it's the Leib of Tanya, Tanya is Torah, it's the Leib of the Eibusher. The heart of the Eibusher is the Leib, the heart of Yidden, because Yidden and the Eibusher and Torah are all one. And it's the heart of Chassidus. It's the union of Avos Yisrael. And in Tanya, Taka explains, and let's explain a little bit. We know everyone knows this, but what's Taka the reason? Why is Avos Yisrael called the whole Torah? Or like Rabbi Akiva says, a Klal Gadol b'Torah. So in Tanya, this is what he explains. Explains it like this. I think I explained it once before, but it's in Tanya. I'm going to just paraphrase, say different lashonos. The whole Torah is one of what is the whole Torah? What is the nikud of the whole Torah? Is Gabrus Haruchnis Halagashmias. To have Ruchnias, Kedusha, Elokus, overpower the Gashmias. That's the whole thing. Is Gabrus Hatsura Alachemer. The Tzura, the Ruchnias, should overcome the Gashmias. And how is that when you do mitzvahs? But that's the whole purpose of everything. In other words, that the Gashmi should not be the Iker, and in the Gashmi you big the Ruchnis, and you should look at the Ruchnis the Iker. Every mitzvah, when we do that, we don't see how that happens. You do a mitzvah, the Gashmi is still there. We don't see the Gashmi turns into Ruchnis. The only mitzvah the only way to fulfill it with Gashmi is only if you look at the Ruchnis more than the Gashmi is. Because if you look from the Gashmi side, how could you love every Yid? Not possible. Every Yid is different. Every Yid is, this guy's a bigger guy, a smaller guy, this guy did me a favor, this guy didn't do anything, this guy don't like. If you look at the person Begashmis, you'll never have Avos Yisrael. After L'Racha Kamecha, never, impossible. Impossible. The only way is if you look at his neshama. So the mitzvah Avos Yisrael is an expression of looking at the Ruchnis over the Gashmias. And that is the whole Torah. So therefore, this is the mitzvah which contains the whole Torah. But there's other places that Tzemach Tzedek in the Maimer brings from the Yerushalmi. He says, what's the union of Avos Yisrael? How do you come to Avos Yisrael? He says, if you think about this, Rebbe brings it also in Yerushalmi. You have to look that all the Yidden are really one big body. And imagine if one hand of a person will, by mistake, you'll hit yourself on the other side. Oh, this hand will be angry at this hand. It's all one. So that's what he brings. It's a Tzedek in Derech Metzecha, Mitzvah Avos Yisrael. He brings this Yerushalmi. That this is what it is. So, if you think that we're all one, and if we're all one, then Why? How could I not like the guy? I can't like half of myself. And then there's another thing he explains. Tzemach Tzedek explains an interesting word. Why did Hillel say in a negative way? Hillel said, when he wanted to explain that Ahavas Yisrael is the whole Torah, he said it not to love another Yid, to help another Yid, is the whole Torah. He said, don't do to him something you don't like to be done to you. But what you don't like, don't do it to your friend. Why did he say it in such a roundabout way, in such a backwards way? Don't do it. You should say, love your friend, do to him the best. Why? What you don't like, don't do it to him. So that Tzemach Tzedek explains, this is the key of having Ahavas Yisrael. How? When you have something negative, something wrong that you have, and if someone will tell it to you, you'll be upset. They'll tell you, oh, you did this, you're not good, you're not this. And could be that he's telling you the truth. So if you're telling the truth, so why are you upset at him? He's just telling you the truth. The answer is, when you look at yourself, there is what we call ahavas atzmai. You love yourself. Everyone loves yourself. And the pasuk says, "Akol pshoyim techas ave," and all avedas, love covers up. Love is blind. There's nothing that you love as much as you love yourself. So on yourself, you always find excuses. If you know you did something wrong, yeah, but I had no choice. I had this. Always find excuses. But on somebody else, you don't find excuses. And somebody else, if you see something, someone did something wrong, oh, why? Because on yourself you have the love, and on somebody else you don't. That's what Hillel said. What you don't want people to look at you, you don't want people to look at you and not find excuses. Like you want them to look at you like you look at yourself. Don't do it to him. When you look at him, look at the same way. The same way when you look at yourself, you don't want other people to say anything bad because you always find an excuse. How come on the other way you don't find that excuse, and the other way you don't look? If you have the reason on yourself you don't look because you have Ahavas Atzmai, you have your own love. You should have the same love to him. So he's explaining how physically we get to Ahavas Yisrael is by doing this. That if you look at the other person, look at him the same way as you look at yourself. That's what the union of Ahavas Yisrael is. And b'meilei, you will come to love him. And b'emes, you should even do for the real Ahavas Yisrael is if you do for somebody else more than you do for yourself. And that's the whole union. You say the basis of Chassidus is Ahavas Yisrael. The famous word, he asked the Alter Rebbe, what's a Chassid? So the Alter Rebbe said, a Chassid is somebody who forgoes his own thing for somebody else. And he said the Gemara says it. The Gemara says, when you cut your nails, what should you do with it? So the Gemara says, Zerkon, if someone throws it away, is a Rosh. Someone buries them, he's a tzaddik. If someone burns them, he's a chassid. And the Gemara, a chassid is greater than a tzaddik. What's the problem? Because it says, if throw nails down and the pregnant woman walks over it, it could cause her to miscarry. Therefore, if you just throw it, you're a Rosha, you're causing somebody else harm. But if you bury it, you're a tzaddik because but it's still not the best because it might uncover. If you burn it, that's the best. The problem is, it says that if you burn any part of your body, it could cause the person damage. The person whose part of his body was burned could cause him damage. So when you burn your nails, it could cause you damage. So a chassid means somebody who doesn't care about ruining something for himself as long as it will protect somebody else. And that's the real union of Ahavas Yisrael. And that's what the Alter Rebbe said is a chassid. It's known that in the time of the Alter Rebbe, the chassidim had such ave between themselves. The Lashon the Frierdiker Rebbe writes is ke'avas achim mamish, like two brothers who love each other. All the chassidim were like that. The Tzedek said that the Alter Rebbe put it into our DNA, put it into our nature. And nevertheless, Alter Rebbe said that with all the Ahavas Yisrael that Machsidim have, it doesn't come at all to the Ahavas Yisrael that the Baal Shem Tov expected. Baal Shem Tov expected Ahavas Yisrael on the highest level. Before the Baal Shem Tov's father passed away, Baal Shem Tov was a small little boy. He was 3 years old. His father told him, and his father was an old man. His father gave birth to the Baal Shem Tov when the Baal Shem Tov was 100 years old. When the father was 100 years old, and so he died mamash when Baal Shem Tov was 3 years old. So Baal Shem Tov, his father said to him, don't be afraid of anybody except from the Eibishter. And he said to him, what was the expression? There's another word to it, Jeder Eden mit dem ganzen Herz or something. Ahavas Yisrael was the top thing. Of loving another other Eden. Ahavas Yisrael, that was by the Baal Shem Tov the main thing. And the Friedrich Rebbe said that when do we see really Ahavas Yisrael? Not so much when you have tsar from someone's problems, but when you have simcha from someone's hatzlocha. Like when you hear somebody, a tragedy, Rahmanu, it's not happened, everybody feels bad. You feel bad. But when you hear somebody was matzliach, oh, this guy, he won the lottery. This guy had this good thing, this good thing. Are you really happy? The nature sometimes is that you get jealous. The real Ahavas Yisrael is then, if you really are happy with that, that's really called Ahavas, that's the real Ahavas Yisrael. Say Lubavitch, there was Michal der Alter. Michal der Alter was one of the mashpim of Lubavitch. He was a Chassidish Reed in the Bariches. He was very heartsick. He was full of heart. But his Ahavas Yisrael was unbelievable. Just to give an example who he was, that when he became older, he couldn't even give a shir in Chassidus. It was hard for him. So the one that took care of the finances of Timchat Mimim wanted to fire him. And he told the Rebbe Rashab. Kantor Lezer was his name, the guy who took care of the office. So the Rebbe Rashab, no, you can't fire, you have to keep him. And he says, but he can't function, he can't do his job. So the Rebbe Rashab said, it's worth the money just to have the bochrim look at him. He sits in yeshiva. And when he davens, that's enough. That's who he was. But his Ahavas Yisrael is known, Ein L'Shayer. His Ahavas Yisrael was so that he once was in, they say, the people who were there, I heard it from people who were there when this happened, in Lubavitch. The Elter Chassidim, they used to tell it over. That he once, in the middle of davening, in the middle of Krishma, he saw a bocher's shoes were torn. So he didn't wait a minute, and he stopped in the middle. I doubt he spoke. He took the bocher, and he brought him, I don't know where he had to bring him into the office or whatever, and pointed and showed, make sure that they're going to buy him a new pair of shoes. So they asked him later, the Balter, the Michal, Michal der Alter was called Michal, the middle of Krishma. So he said, what is Krishma? Krishma is Havaya Echad, to recognize the Eibishter as one. This is the greatest way we recognize the Emeskite of the Eibishter with Ahavas Yisrael. Because Ahavas Yisrael and Ahavas Hashem go together. Loving another Yid goes together with loving Hashem. Actually, the Alter Rebbe said loving another Yid is a kela to Ahavas Hashem, to loving Hashem. And there's a regular hasborev, it's not so poshut. The greatest love you could show to somebody is not only you love him, anybody he loves, I love because he loves him. Eyev masha'ohov eyev. I love what the one I love loves. And if the Eibishter loves every Yid, because we know it says, Ahavti es chabam Hashem, the Eibishter loves every Yid. And if you love the Eibishter, you will love every Yid. Or Loshen, it says, if you love somebody, you love that person's relatives. But it's the same idea, that Eyev masha'ohov, and that's why it's connected to Ahavas Hashem. And this is what the Michal der Alter, I don't know what Hasbori said, but this is what he said. What's Krishma? Krishma is V'aftas Hashem Alekecha, to love Hashem. That's what it is. The greatest way, if you show your Ahavas Yisrael. And you could only do that, I said before, if you look at the Yid as it's neshama. If you look from the superficial, you can't. Certain people, you say, why should I love him? The guy's bad. So what does it say in Tanya? whatever thing bad a person does, the action you have to hate. But the person you have to love because you have to look as a neshama. That's why you have to love a Rosh Gomer. Once, I think the Melach of Lizensk came out of the Magid. And I think he saw the Alter Rebbe. And he told him, I want to tell you over what I just heard from our Rebbe, from the Magid. The Magid said, Abbas Yisrael meint, this is the Losh, lieb haben a Rosh Gomer, azev yatzadi Gomer. To love a complete Rosh, like you love a complete Tzaddik. Like you love a complete Tzaddik. I think the Lashon he said to him was more than that. I'm just thinking, I should remind myself. He said, the Maggid told him like this. They just announced in Shemaim, I just heard what they made an announcement in heaven. A Ahavas Yisrael means to love a Rosh Gomer like a Tzaddik Gomer. I think the Baal Shem Tov said the Lashon, you have to love every single Ish Poshut like you love the biggest Goen. That's what the Ahavas Yisrael is. Now, some people, Taina, Posik says, word to Reacha means your friend. And Reacha, in Tanya, the Alter Rebbe brings this Chazal. Reacha means somebody who's like you, but someone who's from. But someone who's not, seems like not. Someone would say that. But there is a word that the Ramak writes, the Ramak, Moshe Kurdaviro, writes in his Sefer called Teimar Dveiro. A very interesting raya that you have to have Ahavas Yisrael even to a Rosh Gomer. In Halacha and Raya, because otherwise in Halacha, this is all Chassidus we find, you look at this Neshama, but all the kinds of other Inyanim. But in Halacha, some people would think it's not like that. That it's not. So he brings a raya from the Ramak. The Ramak was the Rebbe of the Arizal. And the Rebbe brings it. He brings this Teimar Dveira in this Kuntras I mentioned before, the Kuntras Ahavas Yisrael. So the Rebbe on the bottom of the order, the Rebbe says who's the Ramak, and he quotes that in Seder Adeiris it says that the Ramak was so great. He brings it when he brings the word of the Ramak. He's so great that he brings the Seder Adeiris that when the Arizal was going by the Levaya, by the funeral of the Ramak. So first of all, what Rebbe doesn't bring it in another place, Rebbe brings the Arizal said a hesped on the Ramak. What was his hesped? It was Pasha Kiseitze. In Pasha Kiseitze, the Posik says that if a person will be chayiv mise, the talis eis al eitz, after Bezin kills him, you have to hang him. That's for till the night, small for a moment. He touched this on the Ramak. If you see a person died, but there's no reason that you understand why did he die. He never did anything wrong. Talis eis al eitz, hang it on to the Eitzadas. It's only because of the Eitzadas. That's why he died. He had no other chesed. But here the Rebbe brings another word that the Arizal said he was following the Oren of the Ramak, and he saw the Lashon. He says here, "Train amuded in here." He saw pillars of fire. I guess most people didn't see it, but the Arizal saw it. And the Gemara says that this would happen only to a Chad Bedora, only to one, the greatest person of the generation, or two people. That's what the Ramak was. So the Ramak writes in his Sefer called Teimar Dveira, an interesting word. A halacha word. It's a nigla word, but the nigla word brings out the senior of Ahavas Yisrael. This is what he writes there. The Gemara says like this. What happens if you have a suffix, whatever the case is, on somebody who's chayiv misa, someone who did Aveira, that you're chayiv misa. And there's a suffix, Bezin had a doubt, came to a doubt of which kind of misa does he get? Because there are 4 types of capital punishment in the Torah. Now there's a say that one is worse than the other. So what happened if this guy we don't know if he's chayiv something that's worse, something that's less. Which one should you give him? Maybe he's chayiv the one that's the stricter one, the worse one, or the one that's less. So if you have to guess, he brought a posik that we have to give him the lighter one. What's the posik he brought? Shenemar, v'yahavta l'reacha kamecha, b'reir lei misa yofe. Since it says v'yahavta l'reacha kamecha, so if you have to choose a misa, choose him a better one, a lesser one. So where does he learn it out from? What does the Gemara says this? Because it says, "V'hafta l'reacha kamecha." You know what that means? Hafta l'reacha kamecha. And this Rosh, who did Aveira that is chayiv misa. To be chayiv misa, you got to be pretty bad. First, you got to do a terrible Aveira, and you have to have two witnesses, and they have to have warned you at the moment you did it, and you said, "I don't care." If that didn't happen, you're not chayiv misa. So we're talking about a Rosh Gomer who did the worst you could imagine. So the Gemara says the pasuk v'hafta l'reacha kamecha applies to him. The pasuk says that you should love your fellow like yourself, applies to him. Imagine. So we see from here that the union of Ahavas Yisrael goes on the Rosh Gomer. And this guy's a real Rosh Gomer. You can't have anything worse. If he didn't Aveira that is chayiv misa, so obviously he did it nevertheless. So he brings this raya that this even goes on him. And this is when you say this in Nigla, but in Chassidus we find that Negeya Ahavas Yisrael for every single Yid, there's nothing to talk about that has to be. So practically speaking, is trying to care about another Yid, like the story said, Mechol der Alter. He loved so much. Mechol der Alter, just telling you things that come to my mind. When I think it was Chonya Marozov, it was from the big Chassidim by the Rebbe Rashab, by the Frierdiker Rebbe. He actually was a Chavrus at the time with the Frierdiker Rebbe. When he had to go, what we call to preserve, he had to go to the draft. And every bocher had to go to the draft. There are all kinds of problems, how you're going to get out of it. And anyway, the end was that he had, and they told him to do whatever. The end was that he was freed from the draft. So he sent a message to Lubavitch. The Cholder Alter got the message that he's free. So he started dancing. I don't know where he was holding in the middle of the and he started dancing. Chonya is befreit geworden. Chonya is befreit. He started dancing and dancing with the simcha that he had. And he danced and danced and danced into the Rebbe Rashab's room. Dancing with the simcha that he had. That Chonya befreit geworden. That because he was a symbol of the real Ahavas Yisrael. But practically speaking, what Poshet means that people should, and I'm speaking to myself or talking to everyone, we're talking amongst ourselves, we should try to talk to anybody that somebody feels that, you don't like this, to overgo. Every night at Krishma Shalamita we say, anybody who did something against me, I meichel him. You got it, that's what it is. In Kotsk, I think in Kotsk, there was Ahavas Yisrael was very strong. They say, I think it is the Kotsk, this is a little different word. They once heard him say, overheard him say that he was Maiver the Seder, I think. And he said, came to the Posik, V'afta l'racha kamecha. So he said, V'afta l'racha kamecha. He stopped like, kamecha, the question. Then he said, kamecha. You understand what was that? So one of his Talmidim, who was a big chassid, said pshat like this. In Kotsk, they taught that how could you like yourself? The whole idea was you like yourself. So what's the pshat? Kamecha, like yourself? You shouldn't like yourself. So he said, kamecha. Then you chapter the pshat. Kamecha means as much as you have to hate yourself, you have to love the other yid. The kamecha is like you hate yourself, you have to love the other yid. The other yid, no matter what. So yourself, you look at it. The nature is the opposite. The nature is there's Ahavas Atzma. You love yourself and you don't really other people, you don't really have the love. But it means Poshe Kipshute. Now, the way the Rebbe always would bring it out is Poshe, you have to be Makar of every Yid. And that's what we see by the Rebbe. He saw the Ahavas Yisrael by the Rebbe was something that not found in history that have such Ahavas Yisrael. And it's but by the Rebbe you could imagine being Makar of every Yid, no matter what. I could tell you, was definitely a Mesiras Nefesh. To us, it's not a Mesiras Nefesh. Okay, I'm told to be a Makar of a Frayid. Some people don't. Because, but the Rebbe who sees deeper, and he would see a person, and he sees in him that this person, who knows what Avedas he did. So, but the Rebbe, you know what would be? Be'etzem. Imagine a guy walks into you, and you could see on his face that he's dirty and crazy, and who knows what he did, Baruchnius. Should throw him out. Rebbe was Makarev, and the people the Rebbe knew who was Makarev, and that's, I'm sure, Mesiras Nefesh. But because obviously Israel, you look at the different. The Rebbe was Makarev, the worst people, and some people had kindness. The Marshal, the famous story with this guy who, what was his name? I'm sure people remember. He was from the Supreme Court of Israel. What was his name? Remind myself. He was known to be mamish anti-dat, against Yiddishkeit, against religion. He wrote articles. He was mamish. We would say Eicher Yisrael, the worst guy. He came once to the Rebbe by some chastera. When they used to come, some chastera used to come. The delegation from Israel, second night when they don't have yontiv, they used to come to the Rebbe. He used to come. The ambassador sometimes from the UN would come. The ambassador to America from Israel would come. So once he came, and the Rebbe was mechabed him with Aposik Atareisa. Rebbe was mechabed him with a Sefer Torah for Hakofe. And the Fruma world, when they heard about it, they couldn't understand it. A guy like this, if it come to any Fruma shul, like throw him out. They who knows? A guy is a mamish. By the Rebbe, and I'm sure by the Rebbe wasn't easy because the Rebbe Kedusha is Kedusha and the guy. But the Rebbe looked at the neshama and he saw that this guy, by doing this, like it says in Pirkei Avos, should be like a Talmud of Aaron Akayan, Eyev Sholem, Varedev Sholem, Mishafash peace, Umekarvon La Torah, be Mekarv them to Torah. And the end was that this made an impact on him, and later he wasn't so bad. Not only that, when he died, he asked he was against everything that has to do with Yiddishkeit. He asked he should have a kosher levaya. Imagine, the guy was a Pekatus Gomor. He was not an Apikatus anymore. But that was because the Rebbe's koyach to be mekarev him like that. But I'm looking from the other side. The fact that the Rebbe was able to be mekarev him when it's so hard. There was a guy, Rabbi Hollander. I don't know who remembers Rabbi Hollander. He was a Rov, very didn't have a beard actually, but he was a real Choshev Rov, and he was. His main thing was he used to fight conservative and reform. He had a radio show. I remember I used to listen to sometimes. Motzei Shabbos, fire and brimstone against the conservative. He went and used to come to the Rebbe. And the Rebbe was mekarev a lot with him, and the Rebbe he had eitzes from the Rebbe. He once came to Farbrengen, and guess who he saw sitting up front in the back of the Rebbe? One of the top conservative rabbis. He couldn't take it. As much as the Rebbe was by him so important in this, he just walked out. He couldn't sit there. And he told people, like, how could that be? And the Rebbe looked at the different. The Rebbe looked at, by doing this, he made this guy become a Baal Tshuva. And that's the keich of the Rebbe. To do that with one Farbrengen, the guy should become. But I'm just bringing out that the Rebbe's Avos Yisrael was something that's Ein L'Shayir. The Friedrich's Avos Yisrael. The Rebbe said that once somebody asked the Friedrich Rebbe, was Mekarev all Freie Eden. So someone asked him once, there was an Asifa Rabbanim, they asked him, there are certain people, that it says in Shulchan Aruch, that you're not allowed to save his life if his life is in danger. And it says people who are frei, not the kursim and this and that, you have to, Meidlin Veimeridin, you can't save them. And such people, they asked him, you are Mekarev? How can you do that? So the way he answered was like this. You know where these halachas are written? The end of Shulchan Aruch of Cheshem Mishpat. He said like this, there are 4 parts of the Shulchan Aruch. Erech Chaim, Yeredeya, Even Ezer, and Cheshem Mishpat. Each one of these parts have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of halachas. The last halacha towards the end of Cheshem Mishpat is these halachas about getting rid of these guys. When you'll be finished with all the halachas and you'll keep them all the way you're supposed to, then you'll worry about this halacha. What he meant to say was, by the time you get there, not only then, if let's say a guy will get there, now you could do it, now you could kill the guy. You will realize that you can't do it. Those people that it talks about there, Bechlal is not, nowadays they don't even exist because they're all Tanekh Shanish, whatever it is. But this is the whole idea of Avos Yisrael, by the Rebbe was to be Mekarev Eden and to care about Eden. But in us it also means to be V'achdus with other Eden. It says it means not only people make fun, not only a non-religious Jew you have to love. You have to love all the Eden. You have to love your friend, and anybody who has anything that's something that with other people not so. This is the Yesod of Chassidus. That's what it is. So you have to say l'chaim and make a hachlata that we will try our best. No, but trying is not good enough. No, what the Randall Futterfall said. They came to America. and he would ask people about doing something. Came from Russia, and first time he heard, people said, "I'll try, I'll try." So he says, "I realized when the guy says, 'I'll try,' I don't want to even say what he said. 'I'll try' means shakeni. I'll try. I'll try doesn't mean anything. So I'm saying we have to try. Trying is not when you say to try. We have to do. He said when people promise to do, you're not so sure to do it. But if you say I'll try, you know for sure he's not going to do it. So we have to, take seriously the union of Israel, because it's not just a union in your mind; it has to be in a feeling. Of course, you have to have a feeling to another Yid, and it's not easy. The nature is that it's not easy to have another feeling to another person. Like I said before, that the Friedrich Rebbe said to bring oneself to be happy when someone else has a happy situation. Push it to be happy for that other person. It's not easy, because the nature is always, someone is good to somebody, you're jealous, you're this, this. But this is what the Shabbos is. So we have to try to do our best. L'chaim, l'chaim. This should be the real hachana to Matan Torah, to hachana to Shavuos. By Shavuos, we should get rid of all the problems that's there in the world. There should be no virus, Gashmi, no virus, Ruchni. It should be all where you're supposed to. And the Eibishter could do it. L'chaim, l'chaim. Let's sing up Sanign. Well, the nign that we sang like Beimer is the nign that fits for Avos Yisrael also. Hine matay v'manoim sheves achem gam yochad. Hine matay v'manoim sheves achem gam yochad. Hine matay v'manoim sheves achim gam yochad. Ya da da da, ya da da da, ya 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 na na na, ya 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 na na ya 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 na na na. Ya 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 na na na. Ya 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 na na na. Ya 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 na. Ya ma 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 ya na. Ya ma 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 ya na. Hine matei umanoim sheves achim gam yochad. Hine matei umanoim sheves achim gam yochad. Adadadai, adadadai, ya 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 na ya 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 Hine matei v'manoim sheves achim gam yochad. Hine matei v'manoim Sheves achim gam yorad yadadada ya na na ya Just to show, he's saying, but the Rebbe, this opposite role is the main thing, and that's what the Rebbe wanted. And anytime there was mice, that there was the opposite of opposite role, that this nefesh that the Rebbe had, it was in the Shayach. But just to show, the first mimer that the Rebbe said, which was the mimer of when he accepted officially the Nesius, which was Yitra Topshin Yud Aleph, which is the Bossi the Gani of Topshin Yud Aleph. In that mimer, everyone knows, everyone looks at this mimer. This the Rebbe laid the foundation for his Nesius of all future years. The first mimer, that's when the Rebbe, and after the mimer and the Sikha, the Rebbe said, but the mimer was the whole thing, but Mashiach and the Rashvi and the whole thing. So one of the things that's very strongly in that mimer is in Avamas Yisrael. In that mimer, the Rebbe brings stories, which is a chidush. In a mimer, we don't really have stories. Amol, there is Kidu, Asipur, the story, but you don't bring, mimer is not stories. In the Sichas, there's stories a lot about the Frierdiker Rebbe. Maimorim are only on the Chassidus and philosophy in the Zborah Chassidus. The Rebbe tells stories, a story about every one of the Rabbeim. Of what? Of how they had Avos Yisrael. Story of the Alter Rebbe, the famous story of the Alter Rebbe, that once it was An Yom Kippur, when they were ready to daven, and the Alter Rebbe had his talis on her in the kittel. He took off his talis, he took off his kittel, and went out of town, went out of the shul, went to the end of the city, and there was a woman there who had just given birth, and there was no one to take care, and it was cold, and he went and chopped wood and lit a fire on Yom Kippur, because it was Pikuach Nefesh, obviously, Sakonis Nefoshes. But the question is, the Alter Rebbe had a lot of chassidim. He could have sent somebody else. He could have sent somebody else to do it. But it says when it comes to Sakonis Nefoshes, mitzvah v'gadol, a great person is the mitzvah to do it. But it's all obviously Yisrael. It tells story of the Mittel Rebbe, that somebody came into Yechidus and asked the Mittel Rebbe a tikkun for something that he did. The Rebbe, Mittel Rebbe opened up his sleeve and he showed him that his skin is dried out. It's all from your Averis. In other words, it affected him. It's a Tzedek, he tells the famous story, the story that it's a Tzedek, after the stalkers of the Alter Rebbe passed away, he would come to the Tzemach Tzedek. The Tzemach Tzedek would see him, and he would talk to him, and he would answer him all his shaylas, questions he had in learning. But then there was a time for a while that he didn't see him, and he felt very bad. How come he does not seeing his grandfather anymore? One day, as he was going to shul, Ayid met the Tzemach Tzedek. It was in the time of the Mittel Rebbe was the Rebbe then. He was a young man. So this person stopped him and he said that today's the market day. And I want to buy some stuff, so I should be able to sell it and make a little bit. Can you lend me a few ruble, 3 ruble or something? She said, sure. Like he was going with the daven. I'm going to daven now. As soon as I finish davening, I'm going to get you the money. So when he came to shul and he was ready to put on his talis, he thinks to himself, what did I do? This guy needs it now. By the time I finish davening, who knows, maybe he'll lose it, he won't find it. So he took off his talis, went home, got inside of 3 ruble, he got him 5 ruble, whatever, and he came to him, found him, and he said, here's the money now, and he thanked him very much. And when he came to daven, the way it says, he was holding by washing his hands before davening, all of a sudden, he sees his grandfather smiling. In the schus that he did this Avos Yisrael, his grandfather came to him. Then he tells a story with the Rebbe Marash, that the Rebbe Marash traveled someplace far in order to be Mekarav Yid, to pull him out. He went to France and got to Meissen, and he told him. But the bottom line is that what the Rebbe does in that Maimer, he talks about Ahavas Yisrael as the foundation of the Rebbe's Nesias. And the Rebbe is unlike what people think. Some people, amongst ourselves, we're talking among ourselves, say, well, there's so many fights in the Bible, so many things. I have to tell you, it is not true. It is not true. Someone says, there's all kinds of dintators, they have disputes in Shluchim. So make a cheshbon. There are over 5,000 Shluchim. And you have 5 dintators going on. You know what that means? In other areas, in other people, you have, it's not 5,000 people, 5,000 institutions. Every shliach is almost like an institution, and that's all it is. I think it shows a lot of Ahavas Yisrael, it shows a lot of Achdus. We shouldn't even have the 5. Ahavas is no good. There's always there's never perfect. But the fact that there is, and I'll tell you, even when there is this arguments that we have amongst ourselves, and everyone knows in Lubavitch, the Meshachist, not Meshachist, you have all these things. It's all not like personal. It's not like we say in some other places, you fight and then this is like this. And it's not fighting over money. Like other places, who's going to get the institution and who's going to be the boss and who's going to this institution. This building is worth $100 million. It's all philosophical. And everyone means metanemes. As much as I disagree with others, and that's not a problem. To disagree is not a problem. The Gemara says, and the Rabbi, I mentioned the Sikha before, ain't they the same Shabbos? The Eibishter made that minds of people are not the same. And you could argue. It's not personal. Okay, sometimes, unfortunately, it could happen. But I'm saying, B'chlolis, we're Chassidim. And you know what the Rebbe said? And I think I'm going to finish with this. The Rebbe said, it was Yud Gimel Nisan Tov Shin Chovov. Yud Gimel Nisan is the Yahrzeit of the Tzemach Tzedek. So there was a special Farbrengen, that Farbrengen, which is 2 days before Pesach. It's the night before B'dikas Chometz. And it was, so the Rebbe spoke about the Tzemach Tzedek. And this is what the Rebbe said. And this is, I think, the most important thing. And this is the lesson that we have to take for when we finish, because usually the end is where you take it along into your bed, into your dreams. So this is what the Rebbe told over. I remember the Farbrengen. Later I heard the recording of it, but I remember the Farbrengen. I remember writing down the Sichos. The Rebbe told the story from the Tzemach Tzedek. We know that Tzemach Tzedek went, the government called a big asife, of 4 people, but it was a very, very special. It was about Yiddishkeit, and they wanted to make changes in Yiddishkeit. They called 4 people to the meeting with the government. Everyone represented something. A representative of the Chassidim, a representative of the Misnagdim, and then a regular person, then a representative of the Maskilim, the ones that the Enlightenment movement. That Tzemach Tzedek was the representative of the Chassidim. Each of Aloshener was the representative of the Misnagdim. Then you had a guy called Stern. What's the name of the 4th guy? And it was a very dangerous asife. And that Tzemach Tzedek knew beforehand that he's going to put himself in danger because he's definitely going to fight anything that they say, which is not what he thinks about Yiddishkeit. To prove it, before he went, you know what he took along? He took along shrouds, tachrichim, because he wasn't sure he was going to come home alive. That's how dangerous it was. And he was arrested within the few weeks that he was there, 24 times, home arrest, house arrest, because of what he spoke out against the government and against the Tsar and everything that they wanted to do. That to show how dangerous it was. One of the times when he spoke very strongly against the government, that Ichel Aloshener, the Rebbe told the story, Ichel Aloshener, who was with him, Ichel Aloshener, also a big gun, a great person, he says to him like this, Lubavitcher Rebbe, these are the words he said to him, the Rebbe, Lubavitcher Rebbe, how do you put yourself in danger? And he said to him, Mele for yourself, you don't care, you're going on Mesiras Nefesh. But you have so many Chassidim. What's going to be with them if something Chas v'Sholom happens to you? How do you put your life on the line? So the Tzemach Tzedek answered him, I'll answer you with a lashon similar to what the Gemara says sometimes. Sometimes when the Gemara has a question, the Gemara answers one answer, and then the Gemara, boy, say, man, if you want, I'll give you another answer. I'll tell you the same thing. First answer I have is, I have my children. The Tzedek said 7 sons. Each one was a tzaddik himself, a Rebbe himself. And they were ready to tackle later Rebbes in different places. The Rebbe Barash was the one that took over the Tzemach Tzedek, but everyone was great. So he said, so this is what he told each of the First of all, I have my children, my sons, and they'll take care. The Ibo is saying, if you want, I'll give you another teretz. The Achdes that the Chassidim have, the unity that's among Chassidim, will schlep them, will take him till Mashiach. And the Rebbe, when he told the story, he said like this. It was sad what he said. And he said like this. He said, now the first option isn't there. He said clearly. In other words, I don't have any children. So the first answer that the Tzemach Tzedek gave is not there. So we're left with the second answer. And the Rebbe said this in 1966. He was really talking about after Gimel Tammuz. He's saying, what's going to be when he's physically not here? Because that's what the Tzemach Tzedek was talking about. He asked him, something happens to you, what's going to happen? So he said, so the Rebbe said, the first option is not there anymore. It's not there now. So we're left with the second option. That the Achdes of Chassidim, that's going to take him till Mashiach. That's where we are now. The Rebbe is with us, there's no question about it, but not physically. And we are physical people, we need physical leadership. So the Rebbe left so much in what he said and what he wrote and everything that is leading us now without a shaila. But nevertheless, the main thing that the Rebbe said was, the Achdes of Chassidim will take us to Mashiach. And this is what we have to focus on. The Achdes of Chassidim. So we have to have Achdes, and I'm just saying it as a representative of all of us. I'm not saying it to anybody. I'm saying it, I'm expressing what we all feel. So we should feel it. And that's how we should enter this week. And especially now that Baruch Hashem, the shuls are opening and with restrictions with this, but this is just temporary. Hopefully very, very soon it's going to change and it will be back to normal and not back to normal. Back to normal is no good. Back to the way it was before, it's no good. We got to go take a lesson from this and do things that will be different than before, better than before. And very soon, we go into Shavuos, Mekabel, Torah, B'Simcha, B'Pnimiyos. So, L'chaim, should all take it to heart, and the Eibishter will take it to his heart, the Leib, the heart of Tanya, the heart of the Eibishter, the heart of Yidden, and he'll bring the heart of everything, which is the coming of Mashiach. L'chaim. Okay. Till next time, Farbrengen, till next year, Emir Hashem.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.